Hi everyone, I'm the Broken Meeple. Win or lose, I'm going to be honest with you. And we have a little treat here from the UK Games Expo forthcoming. This is Foxglove Farm from Alley Cat Games. This is a re-implementation of a Japanese game that functions in a similar way, and it's themed around foxes, whatever, as you'll find out. But it's using the same kind of production quality and artwork as their previous venture, Timber Town, which was their sort of two-player game that you saw me gave a critical review to last year. And this one is just basically meant to be a gateway sort of resource production game. If you think of all those games like Brass and, you know, as much as I've mocked them lately, the whole 19th century industry games where you put a building down, a factory, you produce goods, you move the goods to somewhere and you use it to make victory points. Well, this is effectively the bare bones version of that. So you're taking that mechanic, that game arc, but treating it as a family gateway game, well, sort of gateway game, where you've got, you know, cutesy artwork, nice big thick tiles, and a simplified set of rules. So is this simplifying a little bit too much? Is this a mechanic that's best reserved for those sort of 19th century games? Or could this be another family hit?
We just make boxes here.
Right, screw continuity. The microphone battery died during the last recording and now I have to do all this bit again. I'm not repeating the intro. I've got too little time on my hands. So, Foxglove Farm. The way this works is that it plays over 4 rounds, and each round plays out essentially the same, a minor tweak in the last round. But predominantly what you're doing is that you start off with a double tile with a mine and a forest with their respective stone and wood resources on it, everything measured by cubes. You basically play through 4 phases in every round, and most of them are simultaneous. So first, you produce. All the buildings that you've got with production symbols produce goods. Great, get that down on the way. Then in turn order, you have a choice. You can either pass, great, that's a fun turn, or you can construct one building from the board, or you can construct any number of these trail pieces. They come in T-junctions, straights, and curves, and these basically connect to your sort of display like tableau, for almost like a sort of cartoon style square tiles thing, and you can basically connect the trails up like roads in order to go to nearby buildings. The buildings themselves are on this board. They have a cost of stone or wood, and you basically just choose to take one of those and build it in a similar fashion. Some have instant effects, some have endgame scoring, some produce, some process into victory points, that kind of thing. Once you have done that phase, you then move on to transportation and processing. So the transportation phase is about moving goods from the places that produce them across your village to other spots that need them. So that's what the trails are for. Buildings are not adjacent to each other unless you connect them via a road. Yes, you do have to contend with the thematic disconnect on that one, but just assume that there's a lot of cliffs, I don't know, or a lot of impassable terrain. But the idea is that you essentially have a situation where, for example, let me take a better building to showcase this. So, I mean, I could take this, charcoal kiln thing right here. So I need to get wood, actually, I'm going to need to tweak this slightly. Here we go. I want to make it legal. I mean, come on, got to do things properly. And the idea is that this one will allow me to take wood, move it along the trail to the charcoal kiln, when I can then turn it later into charcoal. And the idea is that you have to move it along trails. You can go through buildings, but you've got to move along trails. And it's a case of moving them to where they need to go. So, I mean, I could take another building, say this one, to, oh, there we go, to just basically let me connect it with the T-junction there. And I could take this stone and move it to this building and process it into some other kind of points. But let's say that this is what I decided to do with my transportation phase. We then move on to the processing phase, where I basically get to turn what resources are on certain buildings into victory points or other resources. So this can become charcoal, so 2 wood, burn it, become charcoal, happy days, and stone, churn it, victory points, move up the point track, and basically we will know what points are for. You do this over 4 rounds. Each round plays out pretty much the same. The last round has a slight tweak where you can intermingle the transportation and processing parts, but otherwise each round is pretty similar. The only main difference is that these A tiles will eventually sort of filter out and become B tiles, which are slightly more powerful. They have endgame scoring. They have, like different other effects. So, you've got a little bit of variety as the game goes on. These C tiles over here, you always have 4 on display. They are their own separate pile and they replenish as you go through, but they are available throughout the whole game. And there's not much else to say. You get to the end of the 4 rounds, and there's only endgame scoring in the respect of certain buildings, like, for example, a town square will give you points for surrounding it with different tiles, that sort of thing. But for the most part, you score your points during the game, and whoever has the most.
Of course!
Yeah, not very difficult, is it? It really is an easy game. I mean, this rulebook is pretty solid as well. It may seem like a lot of pages, but this is big font, lots of pictorial examples, colourful, a decent icon guide on the back, a sort of a display of what is each part of a tile. It really is an easy game to learn. This is perfect for a board game cafe. This is not gateway game level. I think there's a bit too much here to sort of go right for you. For those of you that have never seen games before, here's one to jump into. But it's definitely a good next step game. You know, you've played some Ticket to Ride, you've done some stuff like that. Great, now let's move on to this one. This will be your first entry into the whole produce and process mechanic. I don't know what you want to call it. Factory building. Basically where you produce goods and then use those goods to make victory points. Usually you see these in much heavier games, so this is probably the lightest and one of the only games I can think of that actually does this for a lighter game fare. But it's also very well produced. You've got very nice artwork on the tiles, it's very colourful, you've got little Easter eggs hidden around the place now and again. But the only slight gripe I do have with it is, even though you have got nice artwork and pretty thick tiles, just like Timbertown did, the graphic design in terms of what abilities they have is a little on the small side. It's just a banner at the bottom of each tile, and the resource cost is essentially at the top right corner as well. Now, this doesn't take up a lot of space. I mean, this is literally the main board. You can keep the stack of tiles wherever you want, and your display is not really going to take up more than, this sort of kind of a, let's see, let's just build a fancy thing. So yeah, I mean, this could be like as big as your thing gets. It's not a huge amount of space you need. So as long as you're in that situation, you should be okay. Play this on a bigger surface though, and you're probably going to get some players who struggle to see some of the iconography. That has happened once or twice where the table has been a little bit too big for its needs, and maybe if you've just got some people that are a little bit on the, short-sightedness, it's gonna occasionally crop up as an issue, but it's not too bad. The iconography is clear. I mean, there's very few buildings where you look at it and go, oh, I don't quite know what that does. And if you do end up in that situation, there is a full glossary at the back of the book that explains in text for every single building. So it's pretty easy to pick up this game. It's doing what it says on the tin. It's also very quick. It does what it says on the box. What? And that's a first for a while. How many times do I rant about the idea that boxes lie about the time length of games? 1 to 4 players, 30 to 60 minutes is pretty damn accurate. If anything, your 60 minutes is if you've got slightly slower players in a 4-player game. If you play this with people who can sort of get on with it pretty quickly in a 4-player game, you'll get this done in 45 minutes. The rounds are quick. Bear in mind, 3 of the phases are simultaneous. It's only the building phase that actually requires a turn order mechanic. And as long as you don't have those sort of people that, whenever new tiles come out, have to spend about 20 minutes there looking at them and reading them and deciding what they're going to do, you should be going at a pretty swift pace. 99% of the time this game does move pretty dang fast, and it should finish in the 30 to 60 minute time frame. That is a really good fact that this thing does actually tell the truth about your time length. The solo mode itself is basically a beat your own score with some sort of Cascadia style scenarios thrown in there. You start with a certain selection of buildings and you see whether you meet a certain tier of points, but when you take tiles to build, a bunch of the display goes away, so you have to keep adapting to what comes out. It's not bad. I mean, it allows you to play the game nicely in 30 minutes as a quick little solo puzzle, but there is an element of luck of the draw. Not quite as much as we'll get onto later, but there's a little luck of the draw element, obviously, that, you start off with certain tiles available, but then your ability to get high scores is really going to be dependent on what tiles come out at what time, so there's only so much skill involved in that. But, as I say, it's a casual 30-minute solo game if you want it for that reason.
You don't want to end up old and lonely like Zoidberg!
There's a decent amount of decision making where you're building your village, although you do have a little flexibility, because even though you might have built certain junctions or corners and straights as they were at the time, you can upgrade these tiles as well. So you don't have to build the T-junction up at the get-go. You could pay the difference in the cost and simply say, well, you know what, this is a curve, I kind of need these two to be together now, so let me upgrade this one to a T-junction, and now they're connected. So you have got a little bit of flexibility. You should be able to get out of a situation where you accidentally, box yourself in with poor road planning. But you know, you still have the good decision about what you're going to build, you know, what am I going to produce, how am I going to get it from A to B, what's the most efficient way of doing this, and which buildings or what resources and that am I going to aim for.
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
And there's a good amount of variety present as well, because most of these tiles are just basically 2 copies of each, and there's quite a few tiles. I mean, this is all the rest of the C's, so there is quite a good, you know, 15 more in there at least. There's about another, I would say, 5, 10, 15, 12, probably another 20, 25 in here of the B tiles. And the A tiles, I mean, there are plenty of them. I've just built half of them over here. There's a, whoop, that's a B one. You know, here's a bunch of them there, there's a bunch there, oh yeah, and here's the rest of them here. So there is quite a few tiles in the box, which means your games are going to play out differently each time, to some extent. I mean, you know, there's not a huge amount of difference between, say, a stone and a wood, but, you know, the buildings that you get, the type of village you make, how it looks, how you lay it out, you know, if you get into just the silliness of it and make fun of each other's village and what you're doing, because you can make up the theme a little bit for yourself if you try. And certainly there are players I know who are very good at doing this. I love playing these sort of games with them. But, you know, it's going to be a slightly different experience each time, even though the game arc is generally the same. If there is a negative with this game, it is, as I mentioned, and there's an aspect of luck which is compounded by the fact that this game is very short. This is only a 4-round game, and that is a good thing. I mean, like I said, 30 to 60 minutes, it's quick, it's very speedy. But if you end up in a situation where you have a bad start, usually because you boxed yourself in a crazy way, or perhaps you focused on a couple of different types of resources to begin with, and then nothing seems to have appeared that processes them, or even the opposite way, where you take something that scores heavily for sheep, and then suddenly there's never any production buildings that make sheep, it's difficult to pivot to anything else, because you've already probably at that point done 1, maybe even 2 rounds of the game. You've only got 2 rounds left, you know, after the second round. So if you end up in a situation where those first round or 2 have gone bad, you're unlikely to win the game, because you just don't have this time frame to suddenly go, all right, I'm going to switch to doing sheep now then. It's like, nah, you're kind of stuck on the path that you lay out for yourself at the beginning of the game, and you've just got to see it through. Now, that would be more of a problem if this was something like the length of Civilization, for example, where like 4 hours of play and you've got a luck issue. But here, you're playing this for 30 to 60 minutes. It's not that big a deal, but it's still a negative. You do have to bear that in mind. It's going to flummox gamers more than the casual player, I would say. I think casual players are going to kind of overlook that sort of thing, but it is noticeable, and I've had that sort of feeling in games now and again. But, you know, for as speed as it is, for as light as it is, you can forgive it to a point.
Oh, let's be nice to him. Oh, shut up.
So Foxglove Farm is a solid, decent game. It's just not necessarily one that's going to blow your mind. It fills a good niche, though, because this is not a mechanic that features a lot in light games. The idea of producing resources, moving them to production buildings, and then producing them, you know, and then doing something to them to make victory points or other resources. These are normally reserved for medium and heavier games, you know, and certainly the more boring theme ones like the 19th century ones that I keep going on about. But, you know, this is nice that it fills this spot, because I'm not aware of many games that do this at this casual level. By all means, get it in the comments if you know some other examples, but I think this is going to fill a good little niche. It's almost like my first factory game, you know, my first village building game or something. It certainly could fit that genre nicely. But it's nothing new, it's nothing, you know, nothing groundbreaking in terms of the mechanics involved. We've seen this stuff before, and you do have to contend a bit with that whole luck factor where you could find yourself in a situation where the wrong tiles come out and you can't really pivot to another strategy to save yourself. You kind of just have to do the best you can and hope the same thing kind of happens to other players. So there is that negative there as well. But it is still decent. I still enjoy it, and it is, I say, very speedy, very quick, you know, very quick turns. A solo mode is fine. It's nothing special, but it works. You know, it's not a boring solo mode. It's just no AI to speak of. You don't want to make it too complicated for a casual game. It kind of does what it says on the box and just makes it a nice, simple, family weight game of resource production. I'm going to give it overall a solid 7 out of 10. It's a good game. It's worth a seal of endorsement because it does, you know, does what it needs to do for this type of, you know, level, this type of length, this type of complexity. And despite the issues that there are with, you know, a bit of the luck of the draw and some of the limiting factors here and there, it's still overall a decent fun little romp. You know, just something nice to play every now and again. I probably wouldn't play it twice in a row if I saw it, and after playing it I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm good for a bit, and then we'll play it again some other time. So as I say, not groundbreaking, but still a fairly nice little solid casual romp.
Isn't that lovely?
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Check out the rest of my content. You know, I have done plenty more from this publisher and other casual games besides. Let me know if you are aware of any other games at this sort of casual level that do the whole produce resources, move them, and process them into victory points thing, because there aren't very many of those at all, so I'd be curious if there are any that I'm just not aware of. And of course, let me know your thoughts about Foxglove Farm. Enjoy it? Interested? Something you want to pick up at the Games Expo? By all means do. I don't know when it's going out on retail, but it should be any day now. But you can certainly pick it up at the Games Expo if you visit the Alley Cat Game Store. Cheers for the review copy, and I'm going to leave it there. So take care, and remember, it's only a game, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple show. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.